Hey everyone, I'm Jesse, and today we're going to be doing our first HTV tutorial on iCraft Final.
Step to any item in HTV. So you want to make sure that the item is going to cut out very well. So the first step is, just check and make sure that your lines are, they're fairly, rounded or fairly straight. Make sure there's nothing, sticking out, no kind of bulges on the edges of any of the items, any of the cuts. The next step would just be make sure that your items, like, there's overlapping here, there's here. Just make sure that those items are welded, because if you don't weld it, then you're going to have an issue where here it's going to cut through and here it's going to cut through. So just make sure that all of those items are welded. So make sure your item, check it out, make sure it's something you want. Whenever you do decide to, get it set up to cut, next step is just going to be go in here. So you're going to flip horizontally. That's what I like to do. Some people like to just mirror the entire thing whenever they get into the cut process, and I'll show you that here in a minute. But basically, whenever you mirror it, it's going to show it over here, compared to if you flip it horizontally, it's just going to show up right here. So whenever you flip it, just know that it's going to flip it exactly where the item is located. So, that is one thing to always remember. So, whenever you do cut something at HTV, you always have to mirror it. So one thing I did, and this is on my old machine, was I cut a decal in some vinyl, stuck it on my machine. Make sure to mirror first. Check for mirror. Check for HTV. Something of that nature, because you're always going to do that. So it helps whenever you actually are not wasting all of your vinyl. So this is what we're going to go with today. Simple design. It's something that um, I'm fond of. So we're going to go with this. So what we're going to do now is we're going to send this to our machine. So we're going to go in here and just make sure that your material is set to the correct thing, because you don't want to go cutting something that you're not using. So today we're just going to use some matte heat transfer. So with that, you just go in here, hit smooth. Since I am on the Cameo 3, we're going to go with the auto blade. If you were using one of the older machines, or if you were using a Cricut, or there's other settings involved, but everything's fairly set, everything's defaulted to this. So once you get ready to send its cut, just hit that. This right here, it's going to ask if it needs to be mirrored, just checking to see if it's a heat transfer. This is Silhouette's way of just a double check, basically. So use that as often as you can. But right now we're going to send this as is. So now we're going to flip over to my machine, and I'm going to show you how to load it and how to get prepared on how.
Alright, so now we have our design ready. We're ready to send this to the cutter. So today I picked this green. It's a color I haven't used yet, so it was a color I decided to use. So here we have our mat. So with HTV vinyl, the first thing that you want to do is just make sure that you put the correct side down. So it's always shiny side down, or in this case, it's the white side up. So here we are. We're going to place this on our mat. And I always find it easy just to start top corner, work our way down, and just smooth it out. Just make sure that, it's fairly even. So we're going to load it into our cutter. And just hit the load button. So this is ready to go. So a lot of people talk about moving it away from the wall, moving it to where it has open space. So I created this ingenious contraption right here. It is a license plate that I folded to round it so that everything goes up instead of going into the wall, messing up the cutter, messing up the cut. So I use that a lot. So we are going to cut now. So I'm going to send it to the cutter. So now with the auto blade is checking to make sure that it is on the right setting. So it goes through all these clicks just to make sure that it is on the right depth of the blade. We are going to speed through the cutting process. Alright, so now we're done. So we're going to go ahead and unload it. And we are going to peel it off of the mat. So I always like to make sure that I put my protective layer back on. It helps your mat stay fresh and keeps the tact on it. As you can see, some areas of the mat are having a little bit of trouble, but you know, that just comes with a lot of use. So we are going to start weeding. So I personally like to start at a corner so I can actually see the lines. I don't know if you can see them. They're very, very faint. That is the good thing about the lights. So I know a lot of people here like to use a light pad. The thing about the light pad is that this is a wood table. If I had like a glass table, I could understand it, or if there was a way to do it without it, you know, being kind of intrusive on the desk, I would probably do it. I personally like the lights above just because not only do they help you see all the faint lines, and you know, they help you kind of notice the details of the vinyl as you're doing it. You know, it's a better, I guess, overall for me. Just, you know, the different colors, they kind of help you see. So iCraft vinyl, as you notice here, it's peeling all in one piece. It's probably the easiest vinyl I've found to weed. You know, I've used other brands. I've been doing this for a couple years, so I've used several others. You know, they peel differently. Everybody has their plus, but you know, with the iCraft vinyl, I've noticed, you know, this is all coming off in one sheet, and you know, I'm applying a pretty good amount of pressure on this, but you know, still, the entire sheet came off in one, and you know, you can see that's a perfect peel right there. So, you know, I'm gonna go ahead and trash that. Usually, you will try to save as much of this as you can. Personally, I tried to cut out, you know, the pieces, the squares here. I would have done that, but just for the purpose of the video, you know, just showing some instructions here. So next you're going to work on the inners. So some people like to start on the inside first. You know, I don't know, it's preference, you know, just whatever feels more comfortable to people. You know, this has always been the easiest for me just because, you know, I always count. So, you know, numbers are going to be, you know, fairly simple. So, you know, the ones are going to be the corners, and then always count the vinyl as a 2, and then any kind of inside layer, you know, so 1, 2, 3. So always go with the odds. You know, I don't know. It's helped me over the years to know, you know, what to weed, what not to weed. And not that this is an intricate design by any means, but, you know, just, you know, make sure that you get everything. So that's what we're looking at. So peeled very nicely. So now we are going to our shirt in our heat press, which has actually been preheating as we speak. So let's go. So, you know, I got the press preheated, got the timer set. One of the good things is that, you know, it is a clamshell press. I've worked with swings, I've worked with this one. You know, they both work the same. You know, this one's a little bit easier for some people just because, you know, you can see the design as you're doing it. That way, you know, nothing really moves in the process. So, you know, that's always good just because if you have a design where you're layering, or, you know, if you're doing any kind of press where, you know, you're worried about the vinyl moving, this always comes in handy. So, you know, whatever works for you guys is what works. You know, like I said, it's personal preference. So first thing, you know, always find the middle of your shirt. So I'm going to place this in here, and then just kind of lay it out, smooth it out. So now we're just going to go ahead and close this, give this a quick press real quick. All this is doing is putting a crease in the shirt. So, you know, once you work with the shirt long enough, you're going to start to notice where you need to do things. So as you notice, it has that crease down the middle now, so I know exactly where to go. So lay this on here like so. All right. And just make sure you smooth it out. The rule usually, depending on the size shirt, about 3 to 4 inches. I use my hand basically. So what I'll do is I'll take this, I will fold it in half, and I'll fold it with the non-sticky side being in the middle. And then this way you get a good idea of where the center of the vinyl is. So you see it's right there. So just match that up with your crease on your shirt. And then, like I said, about 4 inches. So I place it about where my hand is. So I'm place it right about there. Put it on, and then we are going to press. So the good thing about this heat press here, this one actually has the timer built in. So while it's pressing, you don't have to hit any extra buttons. As soon as you close the lid, timer starts. So that's one of the good things about it. So iCraft vinyl is good for not really a hot pill, but a warm to a cold pill. That's one thing I have noticed. So let it cool off for a second. Some people use Teflon sheets here to press things. I've never been one to be a fan of Teflon sheets at all. Alright, so we are done. So let's go ahead and peel this. So let's pull it out of the press. Let's not get burned because this is extremely hot. So you have your shirt, let it cool off for a second. Just, that way you don't get burned. So, let's go ahead and start the process. So, just be very careful. Don't yank. Don't get, since we want to rush through this. All right. All right, so there we are, and our finished product.